Hi, I'm Angela and welcome to this video that I'm doing today. It's part one of a four-part series that I'm doing on the real reasons that we fear commitment and how to move beyond that fear and apathy. So there's three real reasons and I've broken it up into four videos, and the fourth one I'm going to look at more problem-solving opportunities. So the three real reasons, I'll be doing three separate videos, and today's video I've called Hard Work Doesn't Pay. So if it isn't easy, then I don't want to deal with it. So whether you're in a friendship or a relationship, or you're looking for a relationship, or you're committing to anything these days, I think it's a pretty common experience that most people are finding it hard to commit to anything. It could even be moving house, it could be making choices about your career. So this video today, we're going to really look at that, I really can't make a choice, and what's the real reason behind that. And if you're watching this video on the Transformed Relationships page, I'm also going to give you some pointers about how to look at specific relationships. So if you're watching the recording of the video and you've got a specific relationship challenge and you don't mind putting it on the chat, then just put that in on the chat so you can have me troubleshoot it, and you can also email me, angela@loveandrelationshipcoach.com. So let's look at the first of the three real reasons that we fear commitment, and how to move beyond fear or apathy to make empowered choices that encourage love to thrive. And a lot of you might notice that apathy is not just something in your relationships, but I think for a lot of people in the relationship experience, people are not sure about whether it's time to move on to the next step in your relationship. You don't know what your relationship status is. You don't know if it's for real, if it's serious. There's a lot of uncertainty about what relationships are actually about these days. And marriage has become, perhaps not the most successful institution, with bad statistics on marriage surviving. So some of the big reasons that people say, people don't want to work hard anymore. So there's this feeling like if you put my effort into a relationship, it's not going to pay off. Look at all the divorce around. And also in the dating world, if it isn't easy, then I don't want to deal with it. So if someone's issues come up in a relationship, the whole thing is like, too hard, I don't want to deal with it. And people blame this on these typical reasons. It's because we live in a computer society. So, if you get a phone and you don't like it, you just throw away and you get a new phone. If it doesn't work, I'll just get a new one. If it's easy, if it's quick, if it's fun, yeah, okay. If it sounds like hard work, nah, couldn't be bothered, too much effort. So here today, what I'm going to do with the three real reasons is go to our inner world. So let me just briefly talk about the inner world. I've already told you what's really going on here. In the inner world, the feeling is, if I choose anything, to commit to the next step in the relationship, to not sleep around with other people and focus on this one person, to maybe give up my current work so I can focus on something that's more in alignment with my family, to give up something with my family so I can focus on something that's more really pressing and important for my work. I'm just checking that the stream is still recording. I may have interrupted with the signal that I have here. So what I was saying, that with the fears that we're having at the time these days with commitment, is that if we actually commit to one choice, whether it's our family, our career, our relationship, somehow it's going to end up at the wrong choice. We're going to get judged for it, or we're going to feel like we missed out and we did the wrong thing by some standard that we've got internally. So let's just check out what might be some of these inner world reasons that we have this fear that if I make a choice, what if I'm wrong? Why do we actually work that way from our inner world? Like externally, a lot of you may know that the world's very disposable at the moment. We just want a quick fix when we want it. And anything that requires more of us, we're hesitant to. But the real inner world reason is that there's a fear that if we choose and focus on something, it's going to fail or I'll be wrong. So I wanted to go over some of the more internal dialogues that happen about what is behind in our internal dialogues, that if we make a choice and I'm wrong, what's so bad about that? So I wanted to go over some of the internal dialogues and just have a look at some of these and see if that might be operating in people you know or in your family. Does any of this sound familiar? If I make a bad choice, therefore that choice reflects badly on me. So what if I choose a career, it doesn't work out, that makes me a loser. We don't want to lose face or look bad. So what we do is we get rid of the evidence of my bad choice and ignore any consequences of the choices I made and blame the other person. So in terms of dating, if you start dating someone and you don't really like something about them, we blame them. We say there's something wrong with their personality. We don't ever want us to look like we're doing something that might be in the way we attract that person or the way we choose that person or the context where we meet that person. We don't want to look at our behaviours or our choices as if we're responsible for them. And we look for other people to blame. It's the other person who's wrong. Our society is so consumerist, our government. So we do everything we can to avoid looking like we've made a bad choice, because that's the worst thing that could happen if we get pointed out. And then we keep going. We go, it's not my fault. Oh, well, let's not talk about it. And we keep swiping the phone. So if you're dating on those apps where you're just slipping back and forth, something new and attractive comes along, or it could be social media distracts you from what's the fear is, and that's a really great way to stay in the loop or trap of not really dealing with this fear of the consequences if you make a choice, if you really stick to something. So why don't we keep on looking deeper? Because of this inner dialogue. I don't want to take responsibility for my choices in case it makes me get in trouble, or it makes me look bad, or I look like the person who's responsible for my choice, and then I have to deal with the negative fallout. So some of the inner dialogue of what goes on is pretty key in how we actually keep coming back to, if I make a choice, what if I'm wrong? And so we avoid actually choosing and holding to a choice and sticking to a choice. And also we're going to look at, in the next two reasons, what might be some of the other things that avoid us from holding certain standards about what we're going to stick to and what we're going to commit to. But really what we can see in modern relationships is that if we're going to choose to commit to someone, then we're not so sure that we're going to end up looking good. And there's a very strong fear in our culture generally that we don't look good in public. That's a big focus these days because people are more judgy and more, comparing people and judging parents and the way they raise kids, or judging the way you last in a relationship, or how happy you are in a relationship, or whether you can be the perfect family, which no one really can be. But we still have certain fears of how people will perceive us. And especially if you come from any families where you've had bad experiences, that can be another situation where you don't want to have the same thing repeated. So people see that you've fallen into certain family patterns. So this fear about what if I make a choice, what if I'm wrong? It's a very big internal reason. And that's what I'm calling the real reasons of why we don't commit to anything in relationships. So let's look at it, how that affects the way we love. And this can affect friendships as well. But apathy is the new normal. If you're just too busy, couldn't be bothered, that becomes the new normal. If someone's in need of help, then you might come to a response. But it's sort of like you're kind of always just looking for a way out or to do less. Sitting on the couch, binging on Netflix, and you can even do that kind of apathetic, addictive lifestyle with someone that you are in relationship with. And that becomes a way of avoiding getting to deeper emotional connection, or to the areas where you might need to sort of work out, where are we going? What are we committing to? What is this relationship about? So we've become a little bit averse to really basically getting to know someone. We don't really care about that piece anymore, which used to be what romance was based on, right? If you grew up when you were a bit young, you maybe don't remember. But romance was in the past about getting to know you. And that's become less kind of, fantastic and romantic. So what then occurs is that people get more frustrated because they're missing out on that connection. There's more apathy. They get sexually frustrated. And they also start to do, and this is a really interesting one. I'm just going to move the window here where it's got my face there so you can just see the text. But it's how we actually look at people actually started having skewed opinions about sex rather than having it. So if you've paid attention to the news at all at the moment, you'll notice there's a lot of opinions on the social media and the news about sex. And this is a very interesting thing because it's almost like there's this talking about how things are wrong. So I'm having some problems with the stream, but I'm going to keep going, and then if the video doesn't record, I'll repost it back up on the page. So we now, as a society, what's happening is instead of actually having love and having loving relationships or intimacy, we're discussing it and we're talking about what's wrong a lot. So then what it does, it creates an anxiety in people. It doesn't actually allow people to fully, get away from that fear. I said, if I make a choice, what if I'm wrong? It actually starts to make you paranoid now just to do anything. Even if you've got a good relationship, you start to question things rather than just going naturally in what feels good. Because if you've got a good thing, you should be able to go deeper. But because of the culture that we're in, it's starting to create a lot of mental ways of dealing with the body, intimacy, feelings, and wanting to commit to someone just because you're inspired to commit. So commitment requires a certain level of inspiration, and literally the fire's being dampened by a lot of people poo-pooing that very possibility. And I'll talk about that more in the second video. So this is a really interesting point that our culture's come to, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint so we can look at some of the other things that happen as a result. So as a result, what happens is we go into people having sexual relationships and they are less emotional. So that's another byproduct because we've become much more from the head in the way we do relationships. We're not thinking so much about what is it that I actually want emotionally, and we start to look at things much more sexually. And that's because we are, as a culture, starting to look at what's wrong with love. We're not really celebrating it naturally. And it's good that we're having discussions about things that are negative, but it starts to put a framework on everything in relationships. And it comes back to that apathy vibe that's happening where we're really trying to avoid making a choice for fear of what if I'm wrong. And it's easier not to make a choice just to become more sexually focused and not get emotionally entangled, even though a lot of us still do. So this second point here, affairs, everybody has them. So we start to find that culturally people are actually becoming really immune to that, monogamy is actually something I like. No, there's another thing that's starting to happen where everybody's saying affairs, everybody has them, it's part of life. So we're coming not immune to monogamy, but we're coming immune to people saying, well, actually, I want to create monogamy in my relationship and this is how I'm going to do it. People are not getting creative about that. I mean, some people do, but there's a general kind of, oh, okay, it's okay for everybody to be unfaithful, when it may actually not be for a lot of people. So the third point I've got is whatever is inconvenient for me, it's supposed to be whatever is convenient for me works. Whatever is inconvenient for me, I'm not going to face. But whatever is convenient for me works. So that's the focus. And then also pregnancy is a choice, not an inspiration to give life. So now we see that a lot of things around pregnancy, we've moved the discussion culturally away from giving life is something that's inspiring or something I wish to do, to other discussions around it. And I'm not talking about the politics here, I'm talking about the general feeling of what we are doing to intimacy and relationships. Because these last two are what's resulting. People are confused. What's the goal of an intimate, loving relationship? And so that leads to them not making a choice and leads to them being lonely and socially isolated. So let's look at then what might be a way to move beyond that habit, because this is a big one where we're looking now at creative ways of moving beyond these very habits. And for some of you, you may already have tried this one, but it's pretty much the basis of what you can start to do straight away. So you've got to stop looking outside of yourself and stop expecting others to make you right. Now that sounds very easy on the PowerPoint, but it also starts with the second sentence I have here, learning how to manage your fear about getting it wrong. Sometimes you just got to acknowledge, hey, I got a fear of getting it wrong, and that will help to start looking at it. But often what I notice is that we constantly spend most of our lives trying to get someone else's approval. It could be someone you're dating. It could be people on social media. So the step to really embrace is learning how to manage that fear about getting it wrong. So if you can get to that unconscious dialogue and really start to hear it, and recognize it, that's when you can start to move to the next step. So I would like to also offer the Loving Relationships membership. I'm going to put the link in the description of the video. And we're going to look at different things that the membership can offer you if you are looking for ways to stop being wrong or seeing yourself as needing people's approval. The membership is really good at showing you where that happens in your family dynamic. So the membership is something that I run every month. We do different modules. There's a meeting in a private group, and it's where you get to really look at where are these habits and beliefs that I have that somehow I can't get that love or that closeness that I want in my life, in my relationships. And especially in this case, we're going to look at your family dynamic. If you have these fears about getting it wrong, how to move beyond that. And that family dynamic assessment comes with the first month that you join. So the family dynamic assessment looks at all of your extended family, your parents, grandparents, spouses, children, and ancestors. So we also look at those who are not living, because that's where you get your heritage about what you want to experience in your life and your love relationships. We come from our ancestors and they create the love that we want to bring into the world. And they actually give you love, they give you life. So we look at those very sacred aspects of what family give to you and where some of those beliefs may come that keep perpetuating you, that stop you from making choices or from feeling confident that even if you get it wrong, it's okay, and you've got to explore that. So we also look at exes, and in the description, I've got one of my videos on YouTube that's got a lot of views. It's called Dreaming of Your Ex. So some people are haunted by ex relationships. So we do look at those, because we also look at, if you come from dual families, you may have an ex still in your life who's the father or mother of your child. So you will have to interact with them. And they're very important in terms of your family dynamic. So we do look at exes, and we also look at if you've got an ex that you can't get rid of, that's in your field, and you're dreaming about them, because I've noticed that a lot of people, when they come from breakups, can't let go of that past relationship, and that will start interfering with your current relationship. So in the link you can see that description on YouTube. And some of the steps in the membership that we can do is to look at the symbols in that family dynamic assessment. So it's actually a drawing, and in one of the future videos, part 4, I'm going to look at one of the drawings and just show you how we work with the symbols, if it comes from your dreams or if it comes from this drawing, and to look at the meaning, because often our relationships are showing us all the time things that we're too rushed and busy to take into consideration. And these are the jewels that will show you what your unconscious and your spirit is trying to show you, so you can really change the way that love flows into your life. So look at the things that you're working with in terms of your family, and see if the loving relationships may be something that can help you to see how your family dynamic and your relationship with your current relationship with your spouse or your exes may be somehow connected. And especially with those relationships that are triggering for you, we look at what's that underlying core value that's been triggered for you to become aware of, so that you can learn how to build a new value of self. And rather than looking at what you're missing and what's wrong with you, we actually create a new perception of self. So each module, each month, is giving you tools to start building that new perception of self. There's also listening exercises that help you release unwanted emotions and feelings that block you or keep you connected to a limited perception of self. So you're going to learn a lot of emotional listening skills and body listening skills. And the reason we're doing emotions and body is that sometimes we get lost in one, and we go down this rabbit hole and start making up stuff with the mind. So the emotions and body are wonderful ways to start anchoring and using the mind to explore them in a much more creative way. So the membership, if anything, is very creative, and I've got the links in the description. And then finally, for the next video, I'll post that up on the Transform Relationships page, and also start putting pointers to that, or links to that second video. We look at the second reason for fear of commitment and how to move beyond fear or apathy to make empowered choices that encourage love to thrive. So I'm sorry if the signal today was not operating. Any delays in the transmission, I'll upload the recording again. So you can also put your comments and email me, angela@loveandrelationshipcoach.com, if you want to talk about the membership and what it might entail for you. You can also try the month which has that first family dynamic assessment, where we look at the dynamics in your family through symbols, and we look at some of those relationships that have been not working for you, and also the ones that do support you, and look at how to tweak your perception on them, so we can look at what needs to come into balance or become to awareness, so you can actually move forward to those relationships that you really, really want. So thank you for joining, and I will chat with you soon.